Hurricane Ian, well, Tropical Storm Ian for right now, barrels its way towards Florida as we say a prayer for our friends in the porch, because it looks like it's got a possibility of hitting either one of them. So we'll be talking just a bit about that, what to expect out of that, and where to come from that as we go. In other news, the government stumbles towards a shutdown. Now, they're teasing me. They're saying it's actually going to happen. But Democrats are in control of all chambers. The news media is out there, and they're going to find a way to blame Mitch McConnell for it, and they're just going to open the thing back up. So I don't know why I'm getting my hopes up for this, but I am, and we will see what happens with that and where we go with that. An abortion ban, almost near total, goes into effect in Arizona as Planned Parenthood of Arizona starts sending people out of state, and a tearful woman who is the last one to get a legal abortion in Arizona tells her story. So we'll go over some of that and where that goes. And Edward Snowden, as despised by the U.S. government, is now granted Russian citizenship. That's going to make the blue and on people go crazy. So we'll be talking just a bit about that. It is going to be all this and more. Midterm season's barreling down on us. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. really weird news day today. I've just been kind of looking over the stories again and thinking to myself, man, it's all over the place. It's really weird how we get some of this here, where sometimes it's just focused and the whole show is one specific topic, like the leader of the free world threatening nuclear devastation on everybody who disagrees with him. And on some days it's just like, oh, we're gonna go with the economy, we're gonna go with Snowden, we're gonna go with the hurricane, and it's going to be a thing. The economy, I think, is going to remain to be the big news as we go with everything. But, I mean, the stock market is back in a bear territory. However, we do have a number of investors who looked at some of the stocks and said, ooh, it's on sale. Let me go buy this. It does look like the futures are looking back up, but we're not doing well. Given the fact that we've got 2 quarters of decline in a row, I still maintain that there is a possibility that once we get, because the quarter's almost over, there are 3 days left on the current quarter. And while we are continuing to see a lot of really, really bad things going on in the markets, the fortunate part, possibly for the Biden admin, is the fact that you've had 2 quarters in a row of recession, even though they won't call it a recession. And because of the massive shrinkage that we've seen off of there may be a possibility where there's just nowhere else to go but up at this point. And we may actually be looking at a situation where they'll go back and say, oh, well, we'll have 0.1 growth, and then all the media will cheer and pour their champagne and say, oh, 0.1 growth? He saved us from the recession. I don't think it's going to be a big growth if it does happen, but there is a slim possibility that there's a little bit of growth coming off in the third quarter, just because there was no place left to go but up. But we will continue to see what happens with that and where we go with that. There's also an equal possibility that we just get another quarter of decline, and then we're at almost a full year of decline, and we'll have to see what happens in the Christmas season. But this is where we sit with that right now. This is where we go, and we got to go talk about the finances, your 401k or your 201k rather, as we saw the little clip yesterday, and a host of other things. Plus, we'll look at Twitter trending at the end of the show over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Mr. Behavior is going whole hog on making his new video game and setting up a new studio, so we will continue to support him. PJ Patriot, Tweets by Brit, KTZed. Go check out all of that great programming, because it's going to be an awesome time, especially as we go through and look through and see how we can bring news from the common man to the common man, instead of everyone getting our news from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. So with that, let's get into it and let's get started. And we're going to start with the Dow. Let's get the live chat up so I can see if somebody's saying, oh, are you mumbling? Terry Very, his economy was in the pool. I like that. That's funny. That's funny. I like that. All right, looking at the Dow. The Dow is back into bear market territory once again and notching a new 52-week low yesterday, down to 29,161.12. They're flirting right now with the fact that this could drop below 28,000 yet again, which, I mean, they keep telling me, oh, well, the economy, the stock market is doing great under Biden. Look at what my 401k did. And you got that 1 week of 36,000, almost 37,000, and it can't hang after that. But we will see what goes on with that. Looks like it stayed below throughout the day. It tried to rally itself, and then it just fell back off, and it tried to rally again at the end and fell back off. Now, again, the futures are looking very, very good right now, so we'll see where we go with that. The Dow ending yesterday at 29,260.81. Looking in at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin has notched a significant rise, $20,290.40 on the day. That is up on the day $1,063.50, or 5.5%. So we might actually see a little bit of rise going off of this, just hitting a refresh, and that brings us up even further, almost 6% on the rise. $1,139 US and 80 US cents to rise to 20,366.70. Backing this out to the 5 days so we can see what happened yesterday, with a fairly significant rise there too. So those of you who have some things in Bitcoin are doing fairly well right now. The spread just being massive right now, almost $2,000 in spread, but we might start to see some things go with that. But people may be using this as a savings account too, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Instead of going out and grabbing a TV or a stereo or racquetball equipment or something to that nature, some of these people may be looking at this and saying, hey, I can throw a little bit of money into this and maybe it'll rise, but then it'll be back up away from my regular spending, and hopefully we'll get something back out of it in the future. So we will continue to watch this and see what happens with this. Gas. Now, gas is a weird story around the area that I live in, because I looked at this before I got started, and I do think that capitalitis is doing something with this, and also the fact that they're going all the way out to places like Poinet and out to Wisconsin 33 in Wisconsin. That's Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, by the way. Out to Portage and whatnot, and out to Brooklyn and Lodi to get their low prices off of this. So, the gas here, before we go look at what happened in Madison, has been on a roller coaster ride. When I left, and I talked about this yesterday, I went down to Milwaukee on Sunday. I went down there and put just a little bit of a top off here, because I was at a Quick Trip. I only fill up when I go to a Shell. So I put a little bit of a not top off, but bottom off over into the Quick Trip, because I knew I was getting low and I couldn't make it to Milwaukee, and I knew there wasn't a Shell on the road that I was going. So I threw $30 in at $3.89 at 10:30 on Sunday morning. Drove down to Milwaukee, got back, and the same station that I was at had dropped to $3.42. And I went down to Kenosha yesterday, because there was some business I had to attend to while I was down there. So I went down there yesterday, which is why we had no game stream yesterday. The station was still at $3.42 when I left. And by the time I got back, that station was at $3.99, which I had seen somewhere. Some of the places around the Janesville area were showing $3.89, etc. But yeah, that station was at $3.99. So I don't know what they're doing around the Madison area except for cherry picking to make sure that you get the lowest price. But yeah, it's not like that around here. $3.99 is the $3.89 to $3.89 is the average around here. So that's what we see off of that. But looking in around the Madison area, the Capital Petro Mart is at $3.18. The Mobile all the way out in Lodi is at $3.19. Coming out to Brooklyn, which may take a visit from me here in the near future, because that's actually closer to me than Madison, is at $3.29. Coming back in the Madison area. Middleton, West Madison, $3.29. Going out to Portage is at $3.38, and $3.39 is going to be the high price as far as Gas Buddy goes in the Madison area. Your results may not be typical. Go check your local stations and see, but it's interesting to me that the capital area is holding itself down while all the rest of us are out to suffer. So that's what we see off of that. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. From Investors Business Daily, Dow hits a bear market after sell-off. What to do now? From Scott Latonin, Dow futures rallied 250 points ahead of Tuesday's open. The Dow Industrial Average finished in a bear market, a drop of 20% or more from recent highs, selling off more than 300 points on Monday. On Monday, the Dow Industrial Average sold off 1.1%, while the S&P dropped 1%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq declined 0.6%, and the small-cap Russell lost 1.4%. Among the ETFs, the Nasdaq 100 Tracker Invesco QQQ Trust moved down 0.4%, and the SPDR S&P 500 fell 1%. Key earnings reports this week are coming from Jabil, Cal-Maine Foods, CarMax, Cintas, Jeffries, Micron Technology, Dow Jones stock Nike, and Paychex. EV giant Tesla gained 0.25% after reversing early losses on Monday. Among Dow stocks, Apple traded up 0.2%, while Microsoft lost 0.2% in today's market, and that's of course in the futures. In the ongoing market weakness, DoubleVerify, Hostess. At least people are going out and getting their cheap, fat-laden cakes. Neurocrine Biosciences, Toro, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, as well as Dow Jones stock United Health are among the top stocks to watch. Keep in mind that the deepening stock market correction is a great reason for investors to sit on the sidelines. DoubleVerify is an IBD leaderboard stock. Hostess and Toro were featured in this week's Stocks Near Buy Zone column. Toro is actually going to be one to watch right now because, snowblower season's coming here, and, people are going to go out and do the service and realize, oh, it doesn't want to start. What do I do? Oh, no. They were featured in this week's Stocks Near Buy Zone column on the futures. Ahead of the open, Dow futures rose 0.9 versus fair value, while the S&P gained 1.1. The Nasdaq moved up 1.3 above fair value. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. The 10-year yield hit 3.87 on Monday. 3.87. Again, I remind you, when we started watching the 10-year yield, all the way back, once Biden took office, they were saying that approaching 2% was a sign of inflation and market weakness. And we needed to keep the 10-year yield down around 1.1, 1.2 was where their target ideal is. Now we're looking at 3.87 without a GDP to back it up, which that's your inflationary treasury yield right there. The 10-year yield is at its highest level since April 2010 when it peaked at around 4.01%. I bet we go back higher than that. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices continued lower on Monday, falling nearly 3%. West Texas intermediate futures traded below 77 a barrel, their lowest level since early January. I hate to say it, but there is a possibility that I might go and get a bond, and I'm telling you right off the bat, I'm telling people to stay away from bonds, but you can't ignore the fact that 3.87, almost 4% on a treasury note right now is going to set you, especially if you get a few high-priced bonds, is going to set you in the future. This is not official financial advice. Always check with your local financial advisor, somebody that you know and trust, because I'm just a guy in his living room talking to a microphone. U.S. oil prices continued lower on Monday, falling nearly 3%. West Texas intermediate futures traded below $77 a barrel, their lowest level since early January. Meanwhile, gas just hit $4 a gallon again. So, we will see what happens with that. And let's grab one more in finance from the Daily Wire. Elon Musk agrees with the furious Jeremy Siegel that Fed actions, which blew up the stock market, make absolutely no sense. Oh, Elon, they make perfect sense if you understand what they're trying to do with this, but I wanted to talk about this for a second from Ben Ziesloft. After finance professor Jeremy Siegel passionately argued on Friday the Federal Reserve has neglected to maintain an even hand with monetary policy, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk concurred that central bank's policies do not make sense. Policymakers at the central bank increased the target federal funds rate by 0.75% on Wednesday afternoon, sending the Dow tumbling more than 500 points after stagnating on Thursday. The index fell another 900 points by early Monday afternoon to reach 29,300. The Federal Reserve had initially pegged a near-zero target interest rate and acquired government bonds in order to stimulate the economy during the lockdown-induced recession. During an interview with CNBC, the United of Pennsylvania Wharton School professor acknowledged that he was very upset and said the Federal Reserve's sudden hawkishness makes absolutely no sense. It's like a pendulum. They were way too easy through 2020-2021, Siegel said, observing that no members of the media were willing to ask Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell tough questions during the most recent rate hike announcement. And now, we're going to be real tough guys until we crush the economy. Poor monetary policy would be an understatement. The M1 money supply, which includes liquid forms of money such as demand deposits and checking accounts, rose from $4.8 trillion to $16.2 trillion between April 2020 and May 2020 alone. According to data from the Federal Reserve, the metric peaked at $20.7 trillion in March 2022 and has since fallen slightly. Musk, who said 3 months ago that he has a super bad feeling about the economy, commented on social media that Siegel is obviously correct. The rollback of the monetary stimulus occurs as inflation rises at the fastest rate in 4 decades. Price levels between August 2021 and August 2022 rose 8.3% according to the data from the BLS, making a slight moderation from 8.5% year over year in July and 9.1% year over year increase in June. Central bankers, who also increased interest rate targets by 0.75% in June and July, have indeed pivoted in recent months toward an aggressive tone. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve and serves as the bedrock of our economy, Powell asserted in his speech last month. Without price stability, the economy does not work. For anyone, in particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. There are 2 things that are going on right now that are the reason that what the Federal Reserve is doing is making sense. The big one is that for almost 2 years, from the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2021, the federal government, both under Trump and Biden, I can't forget the commentator that I first heard this from, but another commentator had pointed out, had fire-hosed cash into the economy, essentially. Hey, here's some relief. You don't have to go pay your rent. And if you get evicted, well, we're going to stop the landlord from doing so. Oh, we're going to put a moratorium on foreclosures for your house. So go spend that money and do something else here, which that's going to start coming to a head in a real big hurry. And I noticed that the mainstream news doesn't want to talk about that. But also, hey, here's some cash. Go buy something so that we have a reason to go make our factory workers come back to work. Go buy something really nice here and, everything will be just fine. We'll take care of you. We're shutting down your businesses, so we're going to go back and take care of you. On top of that, they're also going through and still fire hosing money into our economy on the domestic side and also printing out enough money that they can go back out and ship what they do have left over to the Ukraine, either in the form of weapon sales so that they can go back and open the fire hose up and send it back out to the defense contractors who are making a fortune, and enough money into the supply side that they can say, oh, hey, we spent all this money, but hey, the deficit's still down, so come back and cheer us, all right? Look at evil Orange Man and his raised deficit in the last year of his presidency. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve, trying to stabilize the prices, is, and this is what I've continued to tell you from the beginning, as I keep getting warnings and hearing warnings from people. Oh, you don't want to go buy a house in spring? Go buy it now. You don't want to go do this in the spring? Go do this now. The point of trying to raise the interest rate, because the government can go back, they're good for the money, they'll go back and print more. The point is to keep you from spending the money, to keep you from going and buying that new car, that new house. To keep you away from the levers of, fast monetary velocity. That's the point of what they're doing to this. This does make sense. And yes, it is going to crumble the economy because people can't go and take a business loan. They can't go buy a house, which means that the person before them can't go and sell said house. They can't go out and build a house because the materials cost has risen so much at this point. You have to suffer so the government can come back in and print more money. And it blows out loud. So that's what we see coming off of this. Let's get into the main news of the day. And our first piece of news here comes from our friend, token diversity hire in the White House, who in the midst of everything we see, our crumbling economy, on our side of the economy, and of course not the government's side of the economy, because they're going to continue to spend money like morons, no matter what the Federal Reserve does, in spite of the fact that we're facing down the barrel of World War III, with China and Russia both getting more aggressive. A fuel crisis because Europe can't get the oil, and they might have to go back and buy it from us. In spite of all of this, here is the most important thing for us to talk about in the news. Are you ready? From the White House.
On the president hosting the Atlanta Braves today, wondering if you or the president has any thoughts about some of the controversial about the team name, the Braves name, the so-called tomahawk chop. Any thoughts on that?
So, look, we believe that it's important to have this conversation. And Native American and indigenous voices, they should be at the center of this conversation.
On the president hosting the Atlanta Braves today.
That's right. That's right, I'm telling you right off the bat, the most important argument for us to have right now is the Atlanta Braves. Another team name. So let's go back and have that argument. Hey, what else are we going to say? Are we going to have the conversation about the Cleveland Browns? Oh, they might be talking about the people who live on the other side of our red line. We can't have that. What's another one? What's another big one that's out there that's still allowed to go? I know we have Washington football team. Did they actually get a new name now, by the way? I haven't watched a second of NFL coverage this year, because they're still doing the, BLM Jacob Blake thing. I can't give Goodell my money. And yes, as I mentioned on this program before, I used to bleed green and gold. Like, you cut this wrist here, and little blue ovals with cursive writing on the inside pour out, and this one here, little white G's in a green background come flowing out. But, let's go. I know we're talking about the Braves and baseball, and now I'm talking about football, but what team is next? I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. All right, let's get into some actual news here. Let's talk about Hurricane Ian. We're going to start with Fox 13. Tropical storm Ian forms in central Caribbean Sea. Florida remains in cone of uncertainty. From Fox 13 News staff. Tropical storm Ian has formed in central Caribbean Sea late Friday evening and is projected to continue strengthening. Florida remains in the cone of uncertainty as the 11 p.m. advisory of the storm. As of the 11 p.m. advisory, Tropical storm Ian was moving west-northwest, 12 miles an hour, with winds of 40 miles an hour. The system was originally Tropical Depression 9 that formed early Friday morning in the eastern Caribbean Sea. The system is still battling a bit of northeasterly wind shear, but it'll be moving into an environment much more conducive for organization this weekend. Hurricane conditions are possible in the Cayman Islands early Monday, according to the National Hurricane Center. As this moves further to the west, it reaches an area with an enormous tropical heat potential. Very deep, warm water will undoubtedly lead to strengthening. In all likelihood, the system may become a hurricane late Sunday or early Monday. South of Cuba, it's expected to approach Florida Tuesday into Wednesday. It's not out of the question that this becomes a major hurricane during that time. Fox 13 meteorologist Tyler Eliason said, "Although we've been able to narrow the storm's track down to a general path towards Florida, it's important to remember that the cone is still very wide at day 5. About 400 miles away, a track up to the left-hand side of the cone versus the right-hand side means drastically different impacts for any given location. While it's still too early to nail down the specific timing or location of impacts, residents anywhere along Florida Peninsula need to be ready in the early stages of their preparations. Afternoon model guidance is still a bit split beyond the next 2 or 3 days. The latest Euro hints at a southwest Florida landfall, while the GFS is further north into the Big Bend. Again, these are two drastically different outcomes when it comes to impacts. As data collection continues and the storm develops a bit more, models will come into a better agreement. So, just as we know a lot more than we did yesterday or the day before, we'll know a lot more over the weekend. Most of Florida is currently in the cone of uncertainty, though meteorologists warn a lot could change over the next several days. And yeah, it's kind of looking like, oh, this could go any which way. So let's have a little bit of a look at the map, or watch one of the videos too, just to see what it is that they're saying about this. But there is where the depression started and where it's going right now. This is where they're seeing the warm water. So yeah, they're saying it could crank around, and I'm guessing it's going to take out Miami. I don't think it's going to get anywhere into the north, just from the model that they laid out here. It looks like it'll be a hard swing back this way and not go into Orlando, Jacksonville, or anything else. But again, we don't know. There's a number of things that this could do, so let's look at this one here. Let's see what they have to say.
Team Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
I'm sitting here and I hit refresh. I think at 11 o'clock we will have Tropical Storm Ian. It's interesting to look at the satellite presentation the past couple of hours. You can see the thunderstorms certainly becoming more condensed and around a center. There's definitely still some shear, but once this system kind of gets south of Jamaica and up towards the northwestern Caribbean Sea, the shear goes away, and to the water here is very warm, and also the depth of that warm water is very deep. That plays a role in intensification too. So all of this, to me, kind of screams rapid intensification, and we could be looking at a major hurricane in the northwestern Caribbean Sea or the southeastern Gulf of Mexico in a couple of days. There you go. There it is. Tropical Storm Ian, 11 o'clock update as expected. Let's see, 14.8 north, 72 degrees west, top winds of 40, moving west-northwest at 12. Let's see, I'm looking at this for the first time, so let's do this together. I think probably, just based on model data, not a big change, maybe a slight shift to the west. Let's take a look together, and this is all new to me. So again, a Cat 2 here now. Before it was a Cat 1. This is the rapid intensification, and then the path pretty much the same, and then cutting across the state. So this would be Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and the problem here is this right-hand turn, the turn to the northeast, and once it gets kind of in that channel between high pressure to the east and a trough in the southeast, the track confidence starts going way up because it can't go it can't budge out of that channel. So once the track gets established, it's not there yet, it becomes a high confidence forecast. And this type of setup, something making landfall anywhere on our west coast, even as a Cat 1, is not a good thing. So we're kind of hoping we'll get some sort of track deviation or some sort of models moving us either big east or big west. But for now, even this way is still the problem for some place in our viewing area. So again, the timing is so we can get a handle on.
Yeah, I do think it stays a little bit further to the south, just looking at the other model that we were looking at here. I don't think it swings as far north as they try to say that it's going to. But hey, since when can the weatherman predict the weather? Much less the future. Alright, from WESH2, Hurricane Ian reaches Category 2 strength as Central Florida counties under tropical storm watch. On Monday afternoon, Hurricane Ian reached Category 2 strength as it marched towards Florida. Additional rapid strengthening was expected throughout the day. Wind and storm surge impacts were forecast for western Cuba. As of 8 p.m., Ian was 130 miles southeast of the western tip of Cuba and had a maximum sustained wind of 100 miles an hour and was moving north-northwest at 13 miles per hour. Tropical storm watches have been issued for Lake, Flagler, Marion, Orange, Seminole, Polk, and Osceola counties. Tropical storm conditions are possible within 48 hours. A tropical storm warning was issued for Polk County, Sumter County, and is currently under a hurricane watch. A turn to the north with a slightly lower forward speed is expected Tuesday. A turn back towards the north-northeast with a further reduction in forward speed is forecast on Wednesday. On the forecast track, the center of Ian is expected to move near over western Cuba tonight. And early Tuesday, Ian will then emerge over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico Tuesday, pass west of Florida Keys late Tuesday, and approach west of coast of Florida on Wednesday into Thursday. The National Hurricane Center said the Florida Keys are forecast to get 4 to 6 inches of rain, while central West Florida is expected to get 6 to 12 inches. The remainder of Florida Peninsula is forecast to get 4 to 8 inches. Giggity. So, it's going. And one more for the people side of things from Fox 13 Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay area grocery stores packed ahead of Hurricane Ian from Jordan Bowen. Well, there will be no toilet paper to be had in a store anywhere in Florida. Grocery stores throughout Tampa Bay area were packed with people on Monday stocking up on last-minute supplies ahead of Hurricane Ian. The parking lot at the Publix in Southdale Mabry Highway Tampa was packed with cars as residents take Hurricane Ian very seriously. Riverview resident Shelley Kuhn was one of the many who spent Monday loading up on hurricane essentials. She said she picked up non-perishables from a Publix all the way in Tampa. My house is in Riverview, and I actually came here because I thought these people might be evacuating and might not be storing up so much, Kuhn said. Some store shelves were completely empty, but the checkout line was packed full of customers. I found a lot of vegetables still. All the canned meats were gone. I got some canned tuna and canned chicken, Kuhn said. What did I tell you? When you're looking down an emergency, get some canned meat. Packs of bottled water were completely wiped out. Publix, like many stores, had restrictions limiting 2 24-packs or 4 gallons per customer. Daniel Hopp was one who was able to snag the last case of canned water. Everything is empty. Anything you're supposed to have during a hurricane isn't there. No peanut butter, no water. That was the last thing of water. I got really lucky, Hoff said. If you haven't already, stock up while you still can on what you can still find. Key items to have include water in any form you can find, as well as non-perishable foods like canned goods, peanut butter, cereal, granola bars, dried fruits, canned meats, and canned soups. Yeah, there's your evacuation zone right there. St. Petersburg. So, we will continue to watch this, of course, with what they're saying. We have friends in the direct viewing area, so I do hope that they stay very well and very safe throughout all this. We will see if there is a Porch Boys tonight, while everyone's stocking up and deciding whether or not they can live or stay, but that's what we see coming off the hurricane coming through. Let's talk about the government shutdown. They're teasing me. They're teasing me. They're telling me it could happen. And I don't believe them. I want to believe. But the only problem with the government shutdown is they're going to open it back up again. From ABC News, Senate stumbles towards government shutdown with impasse over energy policy. From Allison Pecorin and Trish Turner. Congress has just 3 legislative days remaining to avert a fast-approaching government shutdown at the end of the week, and much of its ability to keep the government running will depend on whether lawmakers can navigate an impasse over energy policy. In the few days that remain, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will try to lead the Senate in a passage of a short-term funding bill that's expected to include Joe Manchin's energy permitting reform legislation. Schumer struck a deal with Manchin to include the energy permitting reform, a top priority for the West Virginia moderate Democrat, on a must-pass piece of legislation before the end of the fiscal year on September 30th in order to secure Manchin's crucial support for Democrats' Keystone inflation. Dude, I'm telling you this right now. Joe, you got screwed on this, because if they needed to keep everything open because they can't afford to have a government shutdown coming into the midterm elections, especially if it's Democrat-led, your little deal is going to get axed and screwed. But with the passage of the healthcare and environmental bill now in the rearview mirror, Schumer's behind-the-scenes deal-making has come home to roost. The fiscal year ends on Friday, leaving Democrat caucus in both chambers deeply divided, with just days to a shutdown. On Tuesday, the Senate will take a key test vote to determine the fate of Manchin's legislation, as it considers a bill to fund the government through the mid-December. And, by the way, this is going to get filibustered as well, because the Republican caucus is looking at the fact that they're about to go lose or possibly gain the House. In fact, the likelihood, unless you see a honkening, beyond any sort of honkening in the world, Republicans are about to go gain the House, which means spending is going to stop in a hurry. However, and we talked about this last week, the Republican caucus's position on this was to filibuster anything unless they pull out and make sure that the government funding goes through the middle of January, so that Democrats can't have one last major spending spree before the changing of the guard in the midterms. So if you're just going to try to go to December 13th, I don't think this is going to fly, regardless of Manchin's decision on this. Let's see, what else do we have? Schumer, with the backing of the White House, is sticking to his promise to include the Manchin legislation introduced Wednesday in the short-term funding bill. The Manchin bill would accelerate energy projects, mandating that federal government environmental reviews essentially be completed in 2.5 years, a substantial increase from today's process. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed published on Sunday, Manchin argued that his proposed legislation would bring the country in line with allied countries like Canada and Australia by reducing timelines on energy products from the current 5 to 10 years. I love, by the way, the fact that they go back and they continue to do this over and over again. We can't have a budget, we just continue to make continuing resolutions. Fire hose. We completely disconnected there for a sec. Let me make sure the YouTube link is still live. Still a proper one. Okay, yeah, it still is. Dude, I gotta have a conversation with the internet company, because they're getting bad again. They fixed it for a while, and we didn't have this problem again for a long time. But remember on the old laptop days where with a message that just came up, it says, "You have been disconnected temporarily," would have caused a processor heart attack in my laptop. Yeah, I just looked over. I saw the little red message pop up over on my monitor over here. Your stream is disconnected. Reconnecting. But we are back, and we are back on. All right, let's keep going talking about the government shutdown. Anyway, I was ranting when I saw the notification come up with that. The thing I was ranting about was the fact that they come back and do this, and it's always, oh, well, we need to go past this in a hurry because the government's going to shut down. And all those, the government workers are going to go without paychecks unless they're essential workers. And, oh, no, what are we going to do about this? How do we fix this? How do we save this? And we don't know about the arbitrary date. Like, the arbitrary date comes up, and we get told how long it's going to be funded through, and then we just forget about it until the next time. And I'm telling you, if I was president, in spite of the fact that I would have nobody to preside over because, you know, at that point, any capable human being has already been eliminated, and the fact that I'm the president means that I'm probably one of the last people left in this country. But if I was president, not on my for instance, on the actual for instance, if I was the president, if I was sitting in the same place as Joe Biden was right now, with the same population and the same economy going, the first thing that I would do on day one is I would hold the press conference. I would find out where the arbitrary date is that we, quote, run out of money. I would find out what that arbitrary date was, and I would tell the people on my first day. And either myself or my press secretary would start the press conference by saying, we have this many days left until the government runs out of money. Reminding everybody that that's the day that it runs out of money. That would be how I would present it to the people to make sure that our government workers get their savings and their affairs in order before the government shutdown, because I know that there would be a government shutdown under me, which unfortunately, again, I would also unfortunately open it back up, because I would hardball Congress and say, no, I'm not passing a CR. And I would tell the American people this too. I'm not passing any CR, no continuing resolution, none of it. We're not doing any of this. You will bring me a balanced budget. You get no option. You get no continuing resolution. I will not sign anything except for a balanced budget with a detailed plan on how to pay for all the pet projects that are in there. And before I sign it, a team of lawyers will be going over it to make sure that the plan is in place. The American people will know when we're shutting down. I will tell them when we're shutting down. And shift the blame solely on you. If you can't bring me a balanced budget, we're not doing this. Screw you. Because we go through this, and again, it comes down to the point of, oh, it's going to shut down, what do we do? Which when I hear government shutdown, I think phased, but, you know, that is not the typical result for the American people. Most people would be screwed if the government shut down. All right, let's keep going. From CNN, Congress again races to avoid shutdown as key vote at risk of failing. From Claire Ferran, we're not going to go too deep into this one. The Senate cited to take a key vote Tuesday to take up the government funding that is at risk of failing over a deal cut by West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. It's come under sharp criticism from Republicans and liberals, a pushback that could be enough to sink the vote and push Congress to the brink of a shutdown. Lawmakers are still expected to pass a short-term funding extension by week's end, but they will likely run up against the deadline of Friday at midnight when the funding expires. The Senate's on track to vote Tuesday evening on whether to start debate on a measure to extend funding, but an effort to attach a permitting reform proposal from Manchin has put the vote in jeopardy. Senators released the legislative text of the stopgap bill overnight. There's the text, and I'm going to go put this in the Discord if you guys want to go back and read that. Let's put that in general chatter. There you go. And let's just look over some of the short title. This act may be cited as the Continuing Appropriations and Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations Act. Because, of course, it's going to be Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations. Except as expressly provided otherwise, any reference to this act contained in any division of this act shall be treated as referring only to the provisions of that division. There is hereby appropriated for fiscal year 2023 out of money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated for payment to Dean Swihart, beneficiary of Jacqueline Walorski Swihart, late a representative from the state of Indiana, $174,000. Now, yeah, we're not going to go through and read all this, but yeah, it's line item. How many pages is this? 237 pages to go for 10 weeks. For money to keep things funded for 10 weeks. I wonder what the total is going to be. And of course, I haven't read this yet, so I haven't been able to go through and tally it all up. But I do have to wonder what the total is going to be out of something like this for 10 weeks. But the text is there, and it's also in the Discord if you guys want to go take a look at it. There was going to be a Fox News article about this, but, you know, that's still archiving, which I say is good and bad. I know that it is kind of lame that we have to sit down and wait for 22,000, not 220,000, 22,107 people to go archive something ahead of us. It's lame to have to wait for that, but that means that 22,107 people realize that the news is crap, and they're going through and making sure that they can't go back and stealth edit it behind everybody. Tweets, news articles, and things like that. They're keeping receipts. So I can't say this is a bad thing. But still, it's kind of lame that it takes so long. And this is one that I did find this morning. So, no Fox News today. We have come 5,000 people since we started the show, though, because it was 27,000 when I started. From the Blaze, stopgap government funding measure reportedly includes around $12 billion related to Ukraine. Why? Because of course it does. Because it's got to get laundered. That money is dirty. That $12 billion has to go to Ukraine and get nice and clean and laundered up and then come back out to Democrats. From Alex Nitzberg. As Americans struggle under the heavy financial burden caused by soaring inflation, Congress could soon approve $12 billion in additional aid pertaining to embattled nation of Ukraine. $12 billion with a B. While they sit there and bitch about the fact, for AM radio folks, but while they sit there and bitch about the fact that, the Federal Reserve, they had to go back and raise it to 3/4 of a point. They're trying to crash the economy for you, and it's all the Federal Reserve's fault. $12 billion out of nowhere to go and fix Ukraine, and not only for a long term, for a fiscal budget, for a full budget year. For 10 weeks! $12 billion for 10 weeks. And the next continuing resolution that they do, how much more is going to be in there for another 10 weeks or however the hell long it's going to be? For 10 weeks. The Associated Press, citing an unidentified individual familiar with the measure, reported more than $12 billion in aid pertaining to Ukraine will be inserted into the stopgap spending legislation that would fund the U.S. government into the month of December, which, by the way, we don't have to go with unnamed source off of that. We can go and look ourselves. I don't know, because of its unnamed source, if that's actually going to be the case, but we do have the technology and the ability to go look for ourselves. The Biden admin's request for the spending measure included $11.7 billion for security and economic assistance related to Ukraine. According to the Associated Press, the outlet reported that in order to avert a partial government shutdown, both houses of Congress would need to approve legislation by the end of Friday, which marks the conclusion of the fiscal year. Reuters, citing unidentified sources, reported that congressional negotiators had agreed to insert almost $12 billion of fresh military and economic aid for the nation of Ukraine into the measure. The outlet said that Biden requested the legislature supply $11.7 billion in new aid for Ukraine in the bill. Ukraine has been seeking to defend itself against a brutal Russian invasion, but Americans have been facing the devastating financial consequences caused by sky-high inflation, according to the Consumer Price Index data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. All items index increased 8.3% for 12 months ending in August, a smaller figure than the 8.5% increase for the period ending in July. But again, remember that this is compounding off of inflation that was rising already year over year the year before. So, there you go. $12 billion going to Ukraine. Because you know this is going to pass. One thing that they can't allow to happen is to have a government shutdown. With all three branches of the government held by Democrats. They can't do it. Let's talk about Arizona. How Arizona's abortion ban may affect the midterms. From ABC News. The Arizona court ruling on Friday upholding the state's 1901 law banning abortions is rattling voters and elected officials. The law provides no exceptions for rape, incest, or fetal abnormalities and makes performing abortions punishable by up to 2 to 5 years in prison. ABC News' Libby Cathy, who is covering the midterm elections in Arizona and one of the embeds featured on the Hulu show Power Trip, spoke with Start Here Monday about how this ruling and the battle for abortion rights since the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade will affect the races. Libby Cathy. Yes, so just to backtrack, there's this law in the books in Arizona dating back to 1864 that bans all abortions and dishes out 2 to 5 years of jail time for those who help with one, except to save a mother's life, and it feels like this law was really forgotten about. It dates back to before Arizona was even a state. But when the Supreme Court overturned Roe with the Dobbs decision in June, the Republican AG here, Mark Brnovich, said he will enforce this law. He will prosecute doctors who try to help women get an abortion. So Planned Parenthood sued him, saying this was unconstitutional. I don't know where you got that idea from. It violates privacy rights, and the court had put an injunction in place that providers had hoped would stay. That did not happen, so on Friday afternoon, a state judge in Arizona reinstated this territorial area, near a total ban on abortion, and the timing was big too, because on Saturday, a ban on abortion after 15 weeks was set to go into effect. That was passed earlier this year by the legislature, signed by Doug Ducey, and Ducey says the slightly less restrictive ban after 15 weeks is the law of the land. Right. So at this time, the Republican AG, Mark Brnovich, is saying that this more restrictive law is the law of the land. So you can have two conflicting statements here, and this all just happened over the weekend. I think there's a lot of confusion about it. So the reality is abortion is illegal in the state of Arizona right now. If women want to get an abortion, they'll need to go to California or go to another state to get one. And Planned Parenthood clinics are still open. They can help point women to other resources and provide contraception. But medical abortions, essentially medication given to end a pregnancy before 10 weeks, oftentimes before women even know they're pregnant. Again, that completely blows my mind. All of those services have stopped. I was at a press conference on Saturday where a doctor said all the chatter among physicians, Facebook groups, and among doctors in Arizona is they feel their hands are tied. She used the words moral injury, and abortion rights supporters protesting outside the state capitol this weekend. They all say, point blank, women and girls will die because of this law. It will likely be going back into a time when women resort to really desperate measures to end pregnancy, or women die themselves because of pregnancy complications, even though there is a position for life of the mother, especially when doctors here can get 2 to 5 for helping them. There is no exception for rape or incest in either of these two abortion bans we just talked about. Both of them have an exception to save the mother's life, but again, because of that prosecution, I think that scares a lot of people. So a lot of people have to go out of state or just not get an abortion at all. Democrats here say it's one of the more restrictive laws in the country. And Arizona is a very red state, or it has been, but this has the potential to change a lot of things. So, there are a few things that are going on with this right now. Now, legally, yes. The Attorney General is well within his rights to, since the law is on the books, prosecute for this law. 2 to 5 weeks, or 2 to 5 years, because it's a complete and total ban except for life of the mother. However, and this is what I really think is going to be the case, because of pushback and because of what's happening right now, because of looking down in the midterms, and really honestly because I knew that once this got overturned and got kicked back to the states, we would start to see governors, legislators, just roll over on the matter because it's unpopular to go full abortion ban. Because of all this, I think that it would be no problem for Doug Ducey, coming into a midterm, to walk over to wherever his Congress is, in Phoenix, I believe, but to walk over to the congressional building, grab his 2 congressional leaders, bring them into the office and say, okay, you gotta repeal this. And given the fact that they just passed a 15-week bill, they'll look at the 1864 law and say, okay. And I'd be willing to bet that that happens before midterms, probably within the next couple weeks. Now, do I believe that it's wrong to abort before 15 weeks? Yes, absolutely. But I am in the minority in this country. Most people in this country, even the people who are adamant supporters of the practice, want to have some arbitrary restriction. And it's typically very early in the pregnancy, 6, 10, 15 weeks. But that's what we see coming out of Arizona, plus some commentary on this. From the Associated Press, Arizona abortion clinics send women to other states. From Jonathan J. Cooper and Terry Tang. I wonder if that's the same John Cooper that has me blocked on Twitter. When an Arizona judge ruled last week that prosecutors can resume enforcing a near-total ban on abortion that dates to the Civil War, it fell off to the staff at Camelback Family Planning to break the news to women scheduled for appointments this coming weeks. The staff faced crying, a lot of very angry people, denial. Nurse Ashley Faring said on Monday. One woman argued, "But I'm only 5 weeks along." Women seeking abortions across Arizona were forced to find alternatives beyond the state's borders after the ruling, which clears the way for persecutors to charge doctors and others who help women end pregnancy unless their life is in danger. The state's major abortion providers immediately halted procedures and canceled appointments. Providers in the neighboring states, already seeing an increase in traffic from other conservative states that have banned abortion, were preparing to treat some of the 13,000 Arizona patients who get an abortion each year. My God. What are you doing wrong? That 13,000 of you need to have this procedure every year. I don't understand this. And I say this as somebody, again, who back in my 20s didn't exactly sit on my hands. I was quite the promiscuous person in my 20s. Yet this wasn't an issue. This absolutely wasn't an issue. It's not hard to not get pregnant. Planned Parenthood, Arizona on Monday asked Pima County Superior Court Judge Kelly Johnson to put her ruling on hold pending an appeal, saying it created confusion about the status of the law in Arizona. Lawyers cited conflicts created by the abortion ban dating back to 1864, a more recent law banning abortions after 15 weeks, and a variety of other laws regulating the processes and paperwork when terminating pregnancies. Johnson's ruling lifted an injunction that was imposed after the U.S. Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision guaranteed a right to abortion in 1973. And the Camelback Family Planning Clinic in Central Phoenix, a young woman took off from work on Monday for an appointment to get medicine and help with an abortion. The 20-year-old is afraid she's prone to miscarriage and already miscarried 2 years ago. Again, I say this as a person who understands very, very fully how to have some fun and still not get pregnant. That there were steps that you could go to before you're sitting there on the table with your legs up in the stirrups. I don't want to experience this. I don't have the time and energy to go through that again, said the woman, who declined to give her name. But she never made it past the check-in window. Instead, she got a slip of paper with a website to order medicine by mail and left visibly upset. She says she never got a call that the ruling by a Tucson judge last Friday effectively voided her ability to get an abortion in Arizona. I can guarantee I would not have wasted my time leaving work early and losing money to come here, the woman said. I need to get it done, regardless if that's going to a different state or going across the border. It just sucks that this is the last resort for people. The doctors and nurses at Camelback Family Planning had an inkling last week that a court decision on abortion could come down, but they thought it would be a ban on abortion after 15 weeks in a pregnancy, so after several abortions performed last week were for patients over 20 weeks along. We cleared our schedule to do as many of those later term ones, said Fearing, the nurse. I can't believe you can say that with a straight face. So they postponed some patients less further along until this week. Fearing and other staff at Phoenix Clinic were letting patients know the clinic is still available to do follow-up abortion care. They refer them to a website and organizations that help with abortion access. Planned Parenthood has patient navigators who work with women seeking abortions to find affiliate in the state where abortion is legal. And to help with money and logistics, said Brittany Fonteno, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Arizona. Many Arizona patients are getting abortions in California, Nevada, New Mexico, and Colorado. This is really a traumatic experience to be told one day basic health care. This is not a basic health care procedure. Is available to you, and then out of the blue the next day it's been stripped away from you, and that has the potential to completely alter the course of your life, Fonteno said. Man, I can't believe that people can just come out and say this. Oh, we cleared a schedule just to take care of the later term ones. Like they were ordering a pizza. That's the part that bothers me the most about this. It's not the fact that they're going out and doing it, because I know that it happens. It's not the fact that people are making money off of it, because it is a service. It is the fact that people can be so cavalier about it. That's what bothers me about this. From Arizona's Family 3, CBS 5, Planned Parenthood asked for a hold on abortion ruling. Planned Parenthood asked an Arizona judge on Monday to put a hold on a ruling that allowed prosecutors to enforce a Civil War-era law banning abortions in nearly all cases. The state's largest abortion provider said the ruling issued late Friday has created confusion about the state of the law in Arizona. Its lawyers cited conflicts created by the abortion ban dating to 1864, a more recent law banning abortions after 15 weeks, and a variety of other laws regulating the processes and paperwork when terminating pregnancies. The confusion has forced Planned Parenthood Arizona to pause abortion services and cancel appointments scheduled this week, meaning that members of our community once again have been and will continue to be denied medical care that they deserve and need while this decision is in effect, Brittany Fonteno, the group's president and CEO, said in a statement. Again, a lot of this is a review off the last article, and again, as I pointed out before, I do think that the repeal for the 1864 law is coming down the pipes. I think that's coming. I'm sure Ducey's probably already in a congressional office saying, what can we do? What are our options? From CNN. One of the last women to get a legal abortion in Arizona tells her story. This ought to be good. From Kyung La and Anna Masha Rapard. Her feet dangle off the exam table, anxiously swinging back and forth. The doctor will arrive soon for the ultrasound. The woman will see the first image of the baby growing inside of her, one she will never hold. The ultrasound doesn't take long, and the image is unmistakable. You can see the head and the little nose, says the woman, pointing at the ultrasound picture. She asks the doctor if she can keep the image. No. You want to keep the image of the child you're about to murder. Oh, these people are wicked. This is the worst part of it, because she wants to keep the picture. I wanted to see my little baby, even though I'm deciding to take this option. What? No. Don't do this. Don't do this to me. I want to have some faith in humanity by the end of the morning. Come on. That option is an abortion. She will have the termination at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Tucson, where she was just examined. First, there's a state-mandated 24-hour wait. As she sits, ultrasound picture in hand, she chooses to tell her story to CNN. No! Why? I want to make peace with this, she says, grieving for the child who will never be born. I can't read this. I can't. Her decision has nothing to do with politics, but caught up in all the emotions rolling through her is her reaction to the national political debate about reproductive rights and who should decide what is best. I'm very angry, she emphasizes. All I see is a group of people, men mostly, making a decision for all of us women when they have not one idea what it's like to be in our shoes. She spoke to CNN just days before a Pima County judge ruled Friday that a ban from 1901, before Arizona was even a state, should be allowed to come into force. The 121-year-old law, which allows abortion only to save the life of the mother, is one of the measures coming back into effect since this summer's Dobbs decision. The woman, whose identity CNN's withholding for her privacy and her safety, says she may not show you her face, but she wants you to hear her story. The woman is 23 and lives with her partner and their 2 young sons. Her first pregnancy was physically challenging, from dehydration to extreme abdominal pain. But she says the second one nearly killed her. I was screaming in pain, the woman recalls, of carrying her younger child, her voice breaking into a sob as she explains rushing to the hospital when she was 5 months. They weren't sure if my placenta was abrupting. I had IVs hooked up to me, breathing machines. The doctors ran multiple tests, she explains, but they couldn't understand why she was bleeding and continuing to have contractions. One time she was in the hospital for 23 days. One moment during that stay continues to haunt her. Paperwork to sign to decide whether I save my son's life, or my life or my son's life. She wanted the comfort of her partner or her mother. But the second pregnancy was during the height of the coronavirus pandemic and hospital protocols. She was utterly alone. At 37 weeks, I'm in the hospital, bleeding, scared, and alone, without my mother, without my family because of the COVID. I'm getting ready to have a premature baby. He makes it. He comes out alive, thank God, she recalls, tears streaming down her face. Her second child feels like a miracle, healthy despite the physical difficulty in the pregnancy, and they are a family. 2 working parents raising their babies. About 10 weeks ago, the birth control failed between the woman and her partner. A few weeks later, an at-home test showed she was pregnant. If things were different, she might have chosen to add to her family, she says. If this baby didn't come with all the complications and everything that it does, then yes, she says. But the overwhelming thought was at the moment the last time she faced with paperwork about whose life takes precedence in an emergency. I know that I don't have the plumbing capable of carrying, and this is the situation that would come out to life of the mother. This would be the one that would be the exception in this law, but I'm sorry. Just feeling the familial bond between my nieces and nephews, I know already. And I don't know what it's like to see and hold my own DNA in my hand, but I know. Life of me first. The kids get to live on. I've lived nearly 40 years. They've made it. The oldest one is 9. They've made it 9 years. I've made it for 40. They have another chance to experience all the wonderful things that and even some of the terrible things that I've experienced in my life. If it came down between me and Pugsley, one of us had to go, I would stand up as a tribute. And that's not even my kid. It's my sister's kid. And I already know. The life of the child is sacred. It wouldn't even be a hard decision for me. And I can't believe that it's a hard decision for the mother. That bothers me. It really does. Looking into the political side of it, because of course there's going to be a political side to this. From AZ Central. And this is an op-ed piece from AZ Central. Admitted Democrats, you love and hate the ruling on Arizona's territorial abortion law. From Phil Boas. There was an odd disconnect in the mood of Arizona Democrats when a Pima County judge ruled on Friday that the state can enforce a 158-year-old territorial-era anti-abortion law. The Democratic Party and its candidates were painting a bleak picture of death and repression. The Republican Party has delivered this blow to millions of Americans, knows exactly the kind of hell they were crafting, said Senate Democratic leadership in the statement. This will kill women, it will break apart families, and trap so many into the generational cycles of abuse and poverty. It's hateful and disgusting, and another buzzword, and buzzword, and buzzword. But on social media, Democrats were chirping. I wouldn't call it gloating, but perhaps it's a second cousin, happy taunting. Where are the Republicans? Why the silence? Where are you, Carrie Lake? It's what one side does when it knows it's won the news cycle and its opponents have been pressed into silence. The Democrats know, as do many political observers in the state, that we're in a strange interregnum on abortion rights between the end of Roe v. Wade and the beginning of whatever new state laws will regulate abortion in the future. In liberal states, this is an easy fix. Blue state legislatures have moved to codify rights once expressed in Roe. It's not a right. But in more conservative states, such as Arizona, the interval will be messy for a time because Republican political leaders who have opposed abortion rights now risk losing many of their own voters if they move in the direction of compromise, the default position on abortion in America. American people, by wide majorities, believe abortion should be legal with restrictions. The UK Economist magazine and YouGov have done tracking polls on American attitudes on abortion and have found the pie divides pretty neatly into 3 slices. 30% support legal, in all cases, no restrictions. I don't use the E word very often, but those are the people we call evil. 30% support some restrictions, as for minors or late-term abortions. 30% favor restrictions on all abortions but for rape, incest, when the mother's life is endangered. Throw the roughly 10% who say abortion should be banned in all cases, and you have a significant majority of Americans, 60 to 40, who say abortion should be legal. Democrats blame an activist Supreme Court for dynamiting 50 years of precedents in Roe v. Wade. Most are unwilling to concede that the real activist court was the one that 50 years ago invented an imaginary right to legalize abortion in the Constitution. Over the years, legal scholars left and right have written about the wobbly foundation that sustained Roe. With this foolish ruling, in 1973, the Blackmun Court had removed the issue from state legislatures where Americans would have debated the issue. Roe prematurely cemented legal abortion into law, and eventually American attitudes. It was a huge advantage for Democrats, and they enjoy its fruits today with the majority of Americans supporting the Roe framework. Now, Arizona Democrat politicians are pressing this advantage in the 2022 state elections, knowing that legalized abortion appeals to many moderate Republicans, especially women in the suburbs and independents. The Pima County Court did not rule the territorial law supersedes all others in the state. In fact, the court is agnostic on whether the law that traces back to 1864 and the time of the Civil War was overarching. Arizona essentially has two laws on abortion, as reported by Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services. The territorial era law makes it a crime punishable by up to 2 to 5 years for anyone who performs or provides the means for an abortion, with no exceptions for rape, incest, only the life of the mother. A law signed by Ducey earlier this week that allows abortion through the 15th week of gestation. There is much for the Arizona legislature and the courts to sort out. In the meantime, the confusion presents a significant advantage to Democrat candidates for office and explains why the Republicans have gone silent. However, even as Democrats paint a bleak picture on abortion, I don't sense their panic. I don't smell their fear. I don't hear the kind of dread expressed, for instance, by the Canadian truckers when they saw their government use the instruments of big tech and high finance to shut off access to the Canadian economy to leaders of the movement, freezing their bank accounts and chilling their speech. That fear was palpable. Truckers angry about the unending pinko pox restrictions found themselves afraid to continue speaking after learning their government had taken a certain turn toward authoritarianism and thought control. The Arizona Democrats chirping on social media were not afraid. They know the ruling will help elect Democrats in the fall, and all states will continue to elect pro-abortion rights candidates until the entire country reflects American attitudes on abortion, legal with restrictions. Democrats know, as many Republicans do, that the ultimate backstop to Roe v. Wade is not the court, it's the people. Good piece. Absolutely true, because they're taking a victory lap on this. Because this distracts from the economy. And we see this. The fact that this is coming back into the news right now as well. We see situations. Our Democrat friends want us to focus on two things in the next 5 weeks: abortion and Donald Trump. They don't want to hear anything else. And it's part of the reason I think that they are trying to hide Biden away a little bit more. Occasionally he'll go out and give his big speech calling for the extermination of his political enemies. Occasionally he'll go off and do that. They'll let him come back out and talk. They'll let him out and sit on his walker and say, hey, the good old days, man, when people that look like Kamala there, that they were the help. They'll let him get out and dodder out there, or pump him up on as much methamphetamine as they can get into his bloodstream without killing him. Have him yell, the MAGA Republicans are the source of all of your problems, and we will take care of them. You just need to elect me into power, and we will have power. Look at this military behind me. And if they can keep his mouth shut for the next 5 weeks, and keep talking about documents and abortion, unfortunately, they win. And even Psaki got it right. Even Jen Psaki realized that, yeah, if Biden's on the ballot in November, they lose. And that's Jen Psaki. She's a moron. And the last one before we get... are we going to talk about Italy? Maybe. I don't know. It's 10 after 9. We probably won't. But last one on this particular argument is from The Blaze. Democrat strategist Kurt Bardella tweets, "How long until Republicans start floating policies to impose a dress code on women?" From Alex Nitzberg. At which point I point out the fact that actually I know a few who already have, so... That's why I'm not in the GOP. While my ideas and the way that I conduct my own life personally may tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side, I don't care what other people do in their lives, in their own bedrooms, etc. And people in the GOP do. Even with Liz Cheney leaving, I can't get on board with that party. Kurt Bardella, who indicates that he's a Democrat strategist, posted a tweet on Monday suggesting the GOP may eventually start advocating for a dress code for women. How long until Republicans start floating policies to impose a dress code on women? Bardella tweeted. Christina Pushaw, who stepped down last month from her role as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' press secretary and became the rapid response director for the governor's campaign, responded to Bardella by declaring, "The only people calling to mandate face coverings are Democrats." Tim Carney, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, tweeted, "I'm pretty sure the party mandating face coverings this decade wasn't the GOP." Mary Margaret Olahan of the Daily Signal tweeted, "What is a woman?" in response to Bardella's comment. Going the Matt Walsh line. Nice. Bardella has previously claimed the GOP is a domestic terrorist cell. The Republican Party, the MAGA Republicans, are a domestic terrorist cell operating in America, he said during an appearance at MSDNC, which they've been saying that since Bush was in office. The death of a young woman who died not long after being arrested by morality police in the Islamic Republic of Iran has been the subject of international attention, with some Iranians engaging in protest. CNN chief international anchor Christine Amanpour noted last week that she had been scheduled to interview the Iranian president Ibrahim Raisi in New York, but that the interview fell through after she refused to acquiesce to sudden demand that she don a headscarf. Well, he's got really no room to demand that if he's on our side of the pond. If the interview is happening in his country, he has the right to demand that. But because the interview was happening in the United States, we have the right to tell him that he can go and French toast himself. I politely declined. We're in New York, where there's no law or tradition requiring headscarves. I pointed out that no previous Iranian president has required this when I've interviewed them outside of Iran, Amanpour noted. The aide made it clear that the interview would not happen if I did not wear a headscarf. He said it was a matter of respect and referred to the situation in Iran. Alluding to protests sweeping across the country, Amanpour added, "I don't say this often about a CNN anchor, but Christiane Amanpour was in the right on this one. Absolutely was." You have no right to come into this country and impose your traditions on somebody who's not a subject of your kingdom. So, bye-bye. As far as the dress code on women, yes, like I say, I run in a lot of very, very, very trad cells, partially because of my former adjacency to the Matt Christian show, and all the people who admire Blonde in the Belly of the Beast for the fact that she went from being a lib whore into a trad wife. And I do understand the advantages that come from the traditional family. I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. It's the thing that I'm saying with it is I would like to build a home and a lifestyle where I can do that for myself and my wife, in spite of the fact that I'm probably not going to have one of those. But where I can do that for my home and my wife, but not impose that out on other people. They can do whatever they think is best for their household. A lot of times it's probably going to wreck their households, but it's what they think is best. I'm in no position to go back and impose. Only try to lead by example. Alright, it is 9:14. Let's do a little bit of international stuff. Just because it's actually getting cold and I'm looking at some things here. So, first off, the Italy election, which I have not paid too much attention to, because I'm not Italian. But I do think does come in and show a little bit of the direction of the world, especially since the White House is watching this so closely. From CNN, Giorgia Meloni claims victory to become Italy's most far-right prime minister since Mussolini. I love how, because this is also the first female prime minister in Italian history. And I know that if she had the right politics, then they'd be celebrating. Italy has come out of its repression. They've become they've elected their first female prime minister. It's all great and everything, but because the first this and the first that is the most important thing. It almost seems to me like, oh well, this is we want to have the first female prime minister. No, not that way. No. I mean, Kamala Harris stands a heartbeat away from becoming the first female president in this country. An asterisk. For replacing another asterisk, by the way. But if the doddering old fool does manage to hold on, Nikki Haley and Carrie Lake stand very good chances of becoming the first female president in this country. By the way, the thought of Nikki Haley being the president of this country scares the absolute crap out of me. Because I know at that point, we are in a world war for Nikki Haley. While the defense contractors continue to dole out more money into our pockets. I know we're in a world war with Nikki Haley as president. But this is from Kara Fox, Barbie Letza Nadu, Antonia Mortensen, Nicola Ruotolo, Sharon Braithwaite, and Valentina Di Donato. A lot of people writing on the same page. Brother of Italy leader Giorgia Meloni has claimed victory in a general election that seems set to install her as Italy's first female prime minister, leading the most far-right government since the fascist era of Benito Mussolini. Addressing the media and supporters in the early hours of Monday morning, Meloni said it was a night of pride for many and a night of redemption. It's a victory I want to dedicate. I can't do an Italian accent. I would have to practice that one. It's a victory I want to dedicate to everyone, taking around 9%, and Silvia Berlusconi's Forza Italia scoring over 8%. Final results are expected later Monday, but it's expected to take weeks for a new government to be formed. Meloni entered Italy's crowded political scene in 2006 and co-founded the Brothers of Italy in 2012, a party whose agenda is rooted in Euroscepticism and anti-immigration policies. In the last election, in 2018, the party won just 4.5% of the vote, but its popularity has soared in recent years, underscoring Italy's long-standing rejection of mainstream politics, seen most recently with the country's support of anti-establishment parties such as the Five Star Movement and Salvini's League. Celebrating the early results on Sunday evening, Salvini said on Twitter, "Center-right in clear advantage both in the House and the Senate. It will be a long night, but I already know I want to say thank you." What gets me is the fact that they're calling this far-right. I've looked over some of Meloni's agenda, and she's Eurosceptic, but we're not going to see an Ital exit anytime soon. It seems like, again, we're looking at a mild reform. But look at what they said about mild reformers for 5 years in this country. And beyond, by the way, they're still saying it. Donald Trump was not a fascist. He was not a Nazi. He was not an evil authoritarian. He was a mild reformer. If you want to talk about evil authoritarian, hold on. Let's find the picture. I should save this at some point instead of just going and looking it up. I mean, when you talk about evil authoritarian, in in front of a blood red background with military personnel behind him. But no, this is again a mild reform. Hey, let's have a better look at what our borders look like, and let's change the economy a little bit to work for the people a little bit more. Meloni differs from coalition partner leaders on the issue of Ukraine, whereas Berlusconi and Salvini have both said they'd like to review sanctions against Russia because of their impact on the Italian economy. Meloni has been steadfast in her support of defending Ukraine. Yeah, this is not a fascist. This is a mild reformer. But this is not good for the globalist agenda. A sad evening. In a Facebook post, Conte promised to lead an uncompromising opposition. We will be the outpost of the progressive agenda against inequalities, to protect families and businesses in difficulty, to defend the rights and values of our Constitution. Deborah Serracchiani of the Democratic Party also conceded defeat early Monday morning, calling the results a sad evening for the country. Undoubtedly, we cannot, in the light of the data seen so far, not attribute the victory to the right dragged by Giorgia Meloni. It's a sad evening for the country, Serracchiani told reporters. So, the AP. The AP. I think we're going to get up to the... Yeah, because it's 9:21. I think we're going to get up to the Daily Wire article and then call it for the day. We'll be talking about energy, I think, tomorrow. In fact, I might move this, depending on what happens in the next 24 hours, because I've got... it's Europe effective to us, except for what our costs are going to be as we're supporting Europe. But I think I'll put this up on top with the finance, especially if the prices in Madison for gasoline catch up to the rest of the state. But let's look at what the Disassociated Press has to say. How a party of neo-fascist roots won big in Italy, from Nicole Winfield. The Brothers of Italy party, which won the most votes in Italy's national election, has its roots in the post-World War II neo-fascist Italian social movement. Oh boy. Keeping the movement's most potent symbol, the tricolor flame, Giorgia Meloni has taken Brothers of Italy from a fringe far-right group to Italy's biggest party. A century after Benito Mussolini's 1922 March on Rome, which brought the fascist dictator to power, Meloni is poised to lead Italy's first far-right-led government since World War II, and Italy's first woman premier. The Italian Social Movement, or MSI, was founded in 1946 by Giorgio Almirante, a chief of staff in Mussolini's latest government. It drew fascist sympathizers and officials into the ranks following Italy's role in the war, when it was allied with Nazis and then liberated by the Allies. Throughout the 50s and 80s, MSI remained a small right-wing party, polling in the single digits, but historian Paul Ginsborg noted that its mere survival in the decades after the war served as a constant reminder of the potent appeal that authoritarianism and nationalism could still exercise among the Southern students, urban poor, and lower middle class. The 90s brought about a change under Gianfranco Fini, Almirante's protege, who nevertheless projected a new moderate face of the Italian right. When Fini ran for Rome mayor in 1993, he won a surprising 46.9% of the vote. Not enough to win, but enough to establish him as a player. Within a year, Fini had renamed the MSI the National Alliance. Does that mean Meloni's a neo-fascist? Fini was dogged by the movement's neo-fascist roots and his own assessment that Mussolini was the 20th century's greatest statesman. He disavowed that statement and in 2003 visited the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Israel. There he described Italy's racial laws, which restricted Jews' rights as part of the absolute evil of the war. Meloni, too, has praised Mussolini in her youth, but visited Yad Vashem in 2009 when she was minister to Silvio Berlusconi's last government. Writing in her 2021 memoir, I Am Georgia, she described the experience as evidence of how a genocide happened step by step, little at a time. During the campaign, Meloni was forced to confront the issue head-on after the Democrats warned that she represented a danger to democracy. The Italian right has handed fascism over to history for decades now, unambiguously condemning the suppression of democracy in the ignominious anti-Jewish laws, she said in a campaign video. Man, is the media loving this too, by the way. They can come out and say, fascist, fascist, racist, fascist, over and over again. Not really knowing what those words mean, but still coming out and saying them as loudly and proudly as they can. So watch this coming for the next few weeks, coming out of them. And from Politico, White House anxiously watches Meloni's rise to power. From Jonathan Lemire, the earthquake in Italy has sent tremors that could be felt in the White House. The victory of Italian far-right leader Giorgia Meloni rattled Europe, furthering fears about a new right-wing shift in the continent as it battles economic hardship and nervously watches a raging war on its eastern flank. It was also met with deep, if private, worry within President Biden's admin. The White House put a brave public face on it, noting that Meloni's win was the will of the Italian people, while expressing confidence that Italy would remain a steadfast partner with the West. It's NATO ally, as you know, a G7 partner, member of the EU, said White House Press Secretary, token diversity hire, in her Monday briefing. So we will work with the new Italian government on the full range of shared global challenges, including supporting Ukraine if they defend themselves against Russia's aggression. But diversity hire never mentioned Meloni's name, and the Italian leader's victory, for the first for the nation's far right since World War II, underscored for the White House that it perceives was a concerning trend for the continent, which has also seen right-wing wins in Sweden and Hungary and inroads made in nations such as France. The globalist agenda has its roots in Europe, not necessarily here, because while we do have a lot of globalism going on in this country, it really comes in the rebuilding efforts after the Allies of the Axis of Evil in World War II, where everybody then came together and they signed the pact and they essentially formed Europe into a nation rather than a continent of several independent nations. What Europe is now is what the United States was supposed to be. Mostly sovereign nations aligned together for military and some economic inroads for the most part. But now with everybody crumbling and bending the knee to Ukraine and pumping all kinds of money over there, taking in the refugees from Ukraine, there is a lot of question right now over whether having such an open border policy, even within a small sphere, is good for the people. Europe is starting, especially too, when they look at what they did for their energy at the suggestion of the EU, when they're sitting here looking at the fact that, hey, it might get really, really cold this winter. What do we do? And I think some of that sentiment is going to come back here. I don't think it's the fact that it's going to be the lack of support for Ukraine, because Meloni herself has said that she's in deep support of Ukraine and its sovereignty. It's the fact that if this is the far right, as they keep trying to say that it is, this does bleed back over into our nation. And the open borders globalistic policy is falling out of favor all over the world. One of the things that I want to point out with this too is, I mean, Europe is a very liberal place in and of itself. Like, 6-week abortion ban, it doesn't happen in Europe. I'm actually surprised they have a 24-week ban over there for most of the EU. Or a 12-week ban for a place like England. We have some of it in our left and right, but our left and right is more socialist versus free market, and less open border versus closed border. The right and the left in Europe seems to be focused more on the level of openness of their borders and the ability to travel freely through the EU, as I've observed, as I've watched European politics for the last few years, because I didn't understand them at all in like 2017 when I started really paying attention to politics. Because they are very, very socialistic in and of themselves. very open, very free market. The government takes care of everybody. That comes down from their roots of monarchic societies. The government takes care of its subjects. And if Europe is moving into a point of closed borders and isolationism, then what does that spell for us over here? As isolationism is very clearly becoming more popular with us. I don't know, but we'll continue to watch this. All right, and the last one is just a follow-up on a story that we looked at yesterday, because Hawley and Garland got involved, so this is going to come to us from the Daily Wire. You must testify under oath. Hawley demands answers, rips Merrick Garland for targeting a pro-life activist. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. Yeah, his case was dismissed. I don't know why I know why the federal government wants to go after him. They want to make an example out of him. Josh Hawley is demanding answers from President Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland over the arrest of pro-life activist and Catholic father of 7, Mark Houck. According to his family, some 20 armed FBI agents and 15 vehicles raided the residence of Houck, who leads a nonprofit group, provides sidewalk counseling at abortion clinics in Philadelphia, over an incident last year that involved his then 12-year-old son at a Planned Parenthood abortion facility. Pennsylvania pro-life activist Ashley Garrecht told the Daily Wire Houck was protecting his son from an aggressive Planned Parenthood escort, harassing the boy, noting that the case was dismissed by a federal court in Philadelphia when the escort tried to press charges. If the shocking reports about the FBI arresting a man in rural Pennsylvania are true, then you have a lot to answer for, Hawley said in a letter to Garland. These reports state the federal authorities obtained a warrant under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act to arrest Mark Houck for allegedly committing a single count of simple assault by pushing a man near an abortion clinic, he continued. Houck contends that he only did so to defend his child against the man. The local authorities have already dismissed a separate criminal complaint against Houck for conduct. Not only did your office turn a local dispute into a national case, but the FBI reportedly executed a search warrant in as extreme a manner as one can imagine, the Republican asserted. As Houck's wife said, they saw 20 or more agents arrest their father at gunpoint. The kids were all screaming, Hawley said. To say the least, using this kind of force to make an arrest for a single charge of simple assault is unprecedented. Hawley positioned his arrest against the DOJ seemingly sleeping on the dozens of attacks against pro-life pregnancy centers and churches by abortion extremists following the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I want to know from Merrick Garland directly why Biden's DOJ is arresting a Catholic protester like terrorists, complete with SWAT-style tactics, while letting an actual terrorist act like firebombings go unpunished, he said. The corruption and abuse of the law is out of control, Hawley stated. Come January, the new Republican Congress must launch a thorough public investigation of the DOJ and the FBI, from their targeting of parents to religious protesters to political opponents. So I am actually going to put a bookmark into this because I'm going to look into this case more. I know I had work that I had to do yesterday, but I'm going to look deeper into this case, this particular case. Because I want to know what's coming off of this. I know CNN just pushes this down as, oh, well, Mark Houck pushed down an abortion escort. They don't talk about the 12-year-old son, and I'd like to know more about that. And I'd like to see if I can find sources other than the Daily Wire, obviously. Because, if you go back and just look at Conservative Brief or Daily Wire or something like that, when you go to provide your evidence, oh, well, all you're looking at is right-wing blogs. Oh, you're just a right-wing shell. And I don't want to take opinion pieces from either side, which CNN and the Daily Wire are both putting out to this. And I'd like to see if I can find footage of the raid too, but good luck on that. The FBI is not going to go back and do this, but regardless, this is a big one, because if this goes the way that Hawley and the Daily Wire are saying, then yes, this is the DOJ. The Biden admin using the DOJ to persecute their political enemies. Which we already know they're doing, but you have undeniable proof that this is what they're doing. For a case that was dismissed, and something that would have normally been a disorderly conduct, a fine, or a couple nights in jail, if this had even been taken to. But a federal judge in Philadelphia looked at this and said, I can't do anything with this. The guy was protecting his kid. If this goes out the way that Hawley and the Daily Wire are putting, and of course if it goes out the way that CNN is going, 20 agents is still in excess, by far. So this is something I'm really interested in, definitely. But with that, we will finish out. And the last thing we do is Twitter trending. It's Tuesday. Let's see what's trending on Twitter. On the trending tab, not the For You, not the US elections, but on the actual trending tab. Oh. Seized! From CNN Politics, Justice Department declares seized Mar-a-Lago materials. List is full and accurate, despite former President Trump's claims of planted evidence. Yeah, this is another, first off, this is another attempt to keep Trump in the news and not talk about Biden, the economy, or his call for the extermination of his political enemies. So we don't come back and talk about, oh, and there's more off of this too, but that's the big one, is the seized material is full and accurate. We investigated ourselves and we found we did nothing wrong. Abbott's lies about the U.S.-Mexico border exposed. There was never an open border. 85% of fentanyl was seized at the southwest border. This fiscal year has been seized at legal ports from American citizens. Yeah, but how much got in around them? Before the Islamists seized power, there's that. We can't get over how the FBI literally robbed a bank here. FBI seized $86 million in raid on innocent American safe boxes after duping judge for warrant. And this one from the paid crap poster over on Twitter. The FBI seized 43 empty folders from Mar-a-Lago with classified banners on them. So where are the missing documents? Probably at the National Archives, but the folders were there because the Donald knew something was coming and he put it there to troll people. But again, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm not going to talk about this story. Because it has no bearing on reality. It's just another thing of Democrats running out to either try to get us talking about it and try to put us on the defensive with Trump, number one, in the news, or for them to say, oh, we really got him this time, we promise. Hurricane Ian is trending. We talked about this earlier on in the show. Alexander Vindman's nasty wife uses Hurricane Ian to make a dig at DeSantis, and wow, that's a lot of undeserved blowback. Kind of curious about this. We'll put a pin in that for tomorrow. Florida residents, remember to take photos inside and outside of your property before the storm in case you need to file a property damage claim. That's actually very good advice. And that's the difference between a hurricane and like an earthquake or a tornado is you have a lot of advance warning right now that you can go back and prepare. So you can go back and turn it over to your insurance company. Tornadoes, those happen very suddenly. Earthquakes happen very suddenly. A car driving into your house randomly in the middle of the night happens very suddenly. So these are situations where you really can't get a photo because you don't know this is coming. A hurricane, you have plenty of warning. You know that it's coming. And there's the evacuation zone for Hurricane Ian. So, if you're in the zone, get out. Tuesday Vibe is skipped. Michael Irvin is trending. Michael Irvin was on One First Take. Top 5 rant ever. Michael Irvin taking them to church on First Take this morning. So this is a football thing, I'm guessing, but we can probably go have a listen to this and see what Michael Irvin did. I'm probably going to be out of the loop because I haven't watched a football game in 2 years, but regardless, let's listen. Oh, I can't hear anything off this one. Is this one going to be louder, maybe?
Tell you this too. I have been hurting because I have been having to tell the truth about how great Philadelphia.
I can't hear a word that he's saying. Nope, people, don't record off your TV. And Michael Irvin just had an 11-minute rant about the Cowboys, and it was one of the best things I've watched in a while. Well, it'd be a better thing for me if I could actually hear it, but you know. All right. Number 5, which is our 4th, Try Guys. Hi, we're the Try Guys, official Twitter of the Try Guys. Keith Hobbs, Ned Fulmer, Corn Diddy, and Eugene Lee Yang. Not now, sweetie. Mommy's trying to find out if Ned Fulmer from the Try Guys really cheated on his wife. Have I watched the Try Guys in the last 5 years? No, I'm fully invested and personally very hurt by Ned cheating on the beautiful, lovely Ariel, his wife and mother of his children. Yes, absolutely. So, Ned Fulmer from the Try Guys opening Twitter. Welcome home, cheater. I guess I don't know what this is. I've never heard of Try Guys before today. But apparently Ned Fulmer cheated on his old lady. Excuse me. Oh, this meme made its way around again. So Ned from the Try Guys built his personality around loving his wife, but he was seen making out with his employee Alex in New York, and Alex's fiance has unfollowed her, plus some of their co-workers have unfollowed both of them, and Ned's missing from bids and promos, and I love that this meme just has so much mileage. I've even used it on the spot to go and make fun of Arvold before, who is our expert memesmith. I love this meme. It is hilarious. So, again, I have no idea what this is. If a small blonde Argentinian woman would like to yell in my ear what this is, I would learn. But I have no idea what this is. Am I getting old? And Ken Paxton is the last trend for the day. Texas AG Ken Paxton fled his home state in a truck driven by his wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, to avoid being served a subpoena, according to an affidavit filed in federal court. Well, I got this feeling that we're going to need to talk about this tomorrow, too, by the way. The Democrat running against Ken Paxton, who is running from the law, is Rochelle M. Garza. Guess what? She has an Act Blue. Oh, it's a shock. Go donate money to the slush fund. Act Blue. Secure.actblue.com. Considering Ken Paxton is attempting to block people from fleeing the state to get access to abortion care, I find it quite ironic, almost painfully comedic, that he fled his home to avoid a subpoena concerning abortion access. So, we'll be talking about this tomorrow. I've got that already bookmarked for the stack for tomorrow because, yeah, I kind of want to see why he is running, what he's running from. But all I see is the paid shills. Tristan Snell, Brooklyn or Jersey Dad Reliant, Call to Activism, Lindy Lee. We'll grab this one too. We'll start archiving this one now because it's going to take at least 24 hours to run through the archive. So yes, we'll be talking about Ken Paxton tomorrow. That'll be fun. I can't think of anything that I want to talk about more than Ken Paxton. Oh look, bad gateway. So that one never even finished archiving. That's lame. $25,569 in queue. Yeah, it's going to take a good 24 hours to archive. Well, we'll see if it finishes by tomorrow, I guess. Alright, let's head out of here for the day. Jake Paul's tiny left nut got his job. Mazel tov! We'll talk about that on Friday some more too. Because we'll probably have some details at that point. Not too many details because we don't dox people around here. But we'll probably have some details on how much of an upgrade to his life this is. We always do want to celebrate with our audience, especially because we have a small audience still, so we still can. I want the big audience, so I start making the big money off of this, but I do love having the small audience where we can sit back and celebrate everybody's successes. I do enjoy that a lot. I think we should do more of that. And I know if we do grow to the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people watching per stream, we won't be able to do that anymore. Which would be really great for my wallet and my pocketbook, but not for the celebrating with the people who are awesome. I don't know, it's a catch-22, it really is. Alright, let's head out of here for the day. Outro music, where are you? There it is. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted, hung out with us in the live chat. Some good conversations going on, some of the stuff that we had going off of here, because it's been a really, really weird news cycle, and it's getting even weirder now with Ken Paxton and everything else going on with that. So we'll be talking about Ken Paxton tomorrow. We'll be talking about probably some more Josh Hawley stuff. I'm going to see if I can find some things going on with this Ken Hauk guy and see what's going on with it. Or I might go back and shuffle it off to my research team, which is KTZed, because she's really good at finding stuff on true crime. So either way, we're going to get some more information off of this. We'll be talking about Alexander Vindman, whom I'm not sure who that is, but we'll see what happens with that. Otherwise, it's another 24 hours. We'll see what happens in the next 24, because the news cycle is about that long. And we'll see what happens with the markets, by the way, too. Jopper9 says the Dow is up right now, but, you know, interest rates are heavy and hard, and businesses are struggling, so we will see what happens with that as well. Otherwise, come back here and join us for whatever else it is we can find about the news for tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you guys here for that. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.